We are back in session.
One moment. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, you bet. All right, good, thanks. All right, bye. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, we are, Attorney Bungert, we are also recording again. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. We are on item number 14.
Okay. Number 14, consideration with possible action on a request with Alder Galvin that the city consider taking fluoride out of the treatment process for the city water. Another hot button issue. So there's a lot of folks that want to speak to this matter. Unless some of the staff or committee members want to say something, I would make a motion to open the floor.
I'll second that motion, Mark.
Okay, I made the motion, I guess. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes. So the floor is now.
Hello?
We can hear you. Just
Okay. I couldn't hear anything. I thought maybe I lost
we're waiting.
you.
We're waiting.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. I'm going to put you on mute for right now.
Celestine?
She's currently muted, so she may be doing something in the background.
Sorry, whoops, sorry about that. Okay, so Mitch's iPhone is first. But, you know, Alder Story, I just wanted to let you know that we did have this arranged so that Brenda Staudenmeyer could make a verbal presentation.
Right.
So I would suggest Mitch's iPhone, if you would just be so kind as to allow Brenda Staudenmeyer to make her verbal presentation. And Ms. Staudenmeyer, I will give you 5 minutes. If you just give me 1 second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the clock up for 3 and then I'll start it again for 2. Okay? Just give me 1 second. Okay, go right ahead, Ms. Staudenmeyer.
Thank you. Brenda Staudenmeyer, 1278 Doty Street. Good evening, City of Green Bay Protection and Policy Committee. I'd like to Galvin for recommending this topic and you all for giving it your close attention and care. We're here to discuss rescinding the fluoridation resolution that was approved in July of 1957. The mayor at the time called fluoride a poison and wanted a referendum before the program began. Instead, with pressure from special interests, council took it upon themselves to require the addition of 1.5 parts per million artificial fluoride chemicals to our drinking water. In the decades since then, and especially the past few years, much has come to light on what a mistake this was. The amount of 1.5 parts per million has been concluded to be a cognitive neurodevelopmental hazard to humans by the National Toxicology Program systematic review draft last year. This shows how easy it is for something to be touted for decades as safe and effective, while in reality it's not. Presently, the level of fluoride allowed in drinking water is much higher at 2 to 4 parts per million, while the promoted safe level is now at 0.7 parts per million. Either way, the margin of safety is either very low or non-existent, and at the dosage, we cannot be controlled on the individual level. This goes against all modern principles of pharmacology. I want you to be sure that you all understand that there is no federal or state mandate to fluoridate. Since 2016, 16 communities in Wisconsin have stopped adding fluoride to their drinking water supply. Council has the unilateral ability to end this and are responsible for any harm coming from fluoride if you decide to continue it. It is in your purview and your responsibility to supervise this program accordingly. It is time to end it. I'm part of a federal lawsuit against the US EPA over the denial of our petition, which included almost 200 studies demonstrating that fluoride is a neurotoxin. I come before you today with my 2 lawyers, Michael Connick and Chris Nidell, and some of the leading researchers on fluoride to share the information we have learned since our 2016 petition. Much of the most important fluoride research on levels found in water and neurotoxicity have been done in the past few years, showing there is clearly an unreasonable risk present. It can damage the brain at critical times of child development. The National Institutes of Health has funded the most rigorous and well-done studies to date in the impact of fluoride on neurodevelopmental. These studies were done long after most fluoride-promoting talking points were created. The artificial chemical hydrofluorosilicic acid that the Green Bay Water Utility uses for fluoride is a toxic waste byproduct from the phosphate fertilizer industry. This substance is not a pharmaceutical-grade chemical, and it is not used in any dental product. It is not sodium fluoride. It is not a mineral. It is not like calcium fluoride. It is not a nutrient. It is not like iodine or anything the body needs for proper function. It is not used to clean the water. It is not chlorine. It is a highly reactive halogen and is a toxin. Swallowing fluoride comes with many risks. It is harmful to the thyroid and so has a severe effect on those with thyroid disease. It is specifically harmful for developing babies in the womb and infants up to 6 months. When baby brains are damaged from exposure to toxins like fluoride and lead, they are more prone to behavioral issues, learning disabilities, ADHD, higher crime rates, and mental health issues. Stopping this program will help alleviate stresses on schools like Washington Middle School and other local schools where behavioral problems have shadowed learning. When I was pregnant with my son in 2010, living in Green Bay, it was difficult to avoid fluoride. I was low income and barely had enough money to pay rent and bills. I did not know what I know today about fluoride and the effects to developing infant brains. I am sure I exposed him during pregnancy and the critical times in life to neurotoxic fluoride from the Green Bay City water supply. He repeated kindergarten at house school because he had behavioral issues. If you're worried about teeth, we have a great free oral health program through Oral Health Partnership in the parking lot of House School, where there is an epidemic of tooth decay in a fluoridated community. There is also free dental programs at the Salvation Army Kroc Center, Oral Health Partnership West, and NWTC. Fluoride can be used topically by those desired, and it is entirely unnecessary to force everyone to drink it. There is no use for fluoride in a developing baby or infant until their teeth erupt. Adding fluoride to city water harms the most vulnerable during the most critical time in their life, and it cannot be fixed. A tooth can be repaired. A broken brain is forever a broken brain. Like I said earlier, broken brains lead to higher crime rates, burdens on schools and special educational programs, and increases in mental health issues. I'm asking you to please support me in voting to turn off the artificial chemical fluoride dosing pumps and protect the vulnerable brains of our children and our future citizens of Green Bay. I would like to end with a quote. Don't mess around with fluoride, it's dangerous. Turn it off and never turn it on again. It is not the job of the city to dose any substance into the community drinking water for the sole purpose of achieving a medical result. If you continue, you're morally corrupt. Aaron Brockovich.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you. Sorry. I like to wing it and I hate reading, but.
Well, you did fine. I thought you were a newscaster. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask of Brenda? Otherwise, we'll keep moving along. And Brenda, what may happen throughout the course of this point is that, you know, if we have questions, that we can direct them to you. I'll probably have some maybe toward the end. So I'm good for now. So Celestine.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Next is Mitch's iPhone. I see you're already unmuted. So just give me 2 shakes and go ahead, please state your name and address for the record.
Wonderful. I am Dr. Mitch Sutton. I'm representing the Wellness Way, 2638 Tulip Lane, Green Bay, 54313. I am the clinical director at our health clinic, and I am 100% in support with Brenda that we need to remove the fluoride from the water. And she reiterated this more than enough, but definitely like talking about the, hundreds of studies that are out there that fluoride is technically a neurotoxin. So it's considered just as deadly as lead or arsenic or mercury that can be found in the body. Not to talk about the countless endocrine dysfunction orders, talking, hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, also Hashimoto's thyroiditis, what that halogen can do actually has the same receptor site as, what iodine will do in the body. And iodine is used to create thyroid hormone. But when there is fluoride, it pushes out iodine, which creates a toxicity, which will elicit the autoimmune response. Also talking about renal dysfunction and actually the renal cancer that it can create with systemic use of overuse in the body if it does build up to that toxicity. And there are, millions of people that have a difficult time with actually flushing out things in their system, and that will build up. And over time, that creates dysfunction, and that's what creates disease. So basically, as I said, I'm 100% in support with Brenda on that, and that we do need to remove this, toxic, neurotoxin from our water supply in Green Bay. Thank you very much.
I'd like to ask a question of Mitch.
Go right ahead.
Mitch, you are a dentist, correct?
I am not a dentist.
Oh, you're not a dentist. Okay.
No.
What was your profession?
I'm a chiropractor.
I see. Okay. All right. I was just wondering, I'll ask it anyhow. In your position, I know there are some medical folks that have been afraid to, they've talked to me or talked to some of the alders, but they're in fear of their positions a little bit or retribution. Do you have any feelings like that at all? Or do you feel like you can speak openly?
No, I feel that I can speak openly on a lot of these things because there are, patients that I see every day that have gone through countless different doctors that are trying to fix issues, but there's different ways of looking at things. It's not necessarily responding and just say, hey, take this medication. It's more so, okay, let's figure out what's actually creating that dysfunction in the first place. So It's looking at what creates that inflammatory response in the body.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Celestine, I'm good on that.
Okay, thank you, Alder. Next, we have Michael Connett. Michael, can you please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the committee?
Hi, good evening. My name is Michael Connett, and I am an attorney, and I'm actually coming from Los Angeles, California. And as Brenda had mentioned, I'm the lead attorney.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. You will need to give your address in Los Angeles, California.
Thank you. I wasn't sure. So yes, my address is 3454 Vinton Avenue in Los Angeles, 90034.
Thank you.
So I was the lead attorney in this case that's still going on. We finished our trial in June of this year, and we're still doing some post-trial briefing. But it's a case that's lasted about 3.5 years, and we've deposed a number of federal scientists, including a representative of the Centers for Disease Control and a representative of the EPA. So today, I know I only have a couple minutes, but I'll just mention a few highlights or a few things that I think are important to consider when looking at this question of whether Green Bay should continue to fluoridate its water. And the first point is, in 2006, the National Research Council issued a landmark report on fluoride toxicity. It's a 500-page report where the NRC identified data showing that fluoride damages the brain in animals. And based on that data and some early studies in humans, the NRC recommended that we needed to do rigorous human studies to examine the effects of fluoride on IQ. They specifically called out IQ. And subsequent to the NRC's recommendations, you've had 2 study teams funded by the National Institutes of Health, the NIH. One study team has done studies on fluoride and IQ in Mexico. The other study team has done studies of fluoride and IQ in Canada. These are NIH studies that had careful vetting of the methodology by specialists at NIH. There have now been 4 publications from these NIH teams in the past 3 years, and every single one of the NIH studies has found significant and large adverse effects between early life fluoride exposure, principally prenatal exposure in utero, and reduced IQ and, in one study, ADHD symptoms in the offspring. So you have very well-conducted studies funded by the NIH, which have unanimously found neurodevelopmental harm from the fluoride exposure at the levels that people are receiving in fluoridated areas. And I deposed the chief scientist on fluoride at EPA's Office of Water in this case, Dr. Donahue. She testified that these studies warrant an entire reassessment of fluoride safety standards, not only in the United States, but around the world. I also deposed the representative of the CDC, and he testified in this case that there's no benefits from fluoride exposure prenatally and no benefits from fluoride exposure during the first 6 months of life for an infant. These are the periods of time of greatest risk based on these NIH studies, and the CDC admitted in this case that there's no benefit during this period of life, which is of greatest vulnerability to harm. So if you look at the most vulnerable population—
I'm sorry, your time has expired.
There may be an opportunity for us to ask you questions later too. So
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Kelly Archambault. Kelly, can you please unmute yourself and we will get going.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kelly Archambault. I'm a registered dental hygienist and work for, the address is 1245 Main Street, 54302. I'm a registered dental hygienist and I work for Oral Health Partnership, a profit organization dedicated to improving the oral health of the underserved children in Brown County community by providing dental services and education. We serve children on medical assistance, birth to 19 years old, and the uninsured in need. Along with our 4 clinic locations throughout Green Bay, we also have a school-based program where we turn a school classroom into a dental office and see children during the school day. We also see children with severe dental needs in the hospital setting. Fluoride in our drinking water is one of our best and most cost-effective ways to help protect the children of Green Bay from a common childhood disease of dental caries. Of the roughly 4,000 children we served at schools alone, about 40% of those children had dental disease. If fluoride is taken out of the water, we will see those numbers rise. Even with the important program that Oral Health Partnership offers, there will be an increase in decay that causes pain, which leads to missed school time and impacts the child's learning. I'm asking you to keep the fluoride in the drinking water to help keep all the teeth, and not only in our school system, but also our entire community strong. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you much.
May I ask a question?
Go
yes,
ahead. Alder Lefebvre, go ahead.
I'm not being facetious or anything like that. I just wanted to know, do you have studies that show that the fluorination in the water has actually improved the health, the teeth? Because I'm just going to give an example. When I grew up on a farm, and we were kind of poor and everything, and I did not brush my teeth like I should have. Not till I was older did I do this. I think what we're probably seeing is that it's improving. Teeth are improving is because now we have access to toothpaste, toothbrushes. And because you do have a good organization like yours, that you are getting to these young people who are in households that don't have a lot of money in that, and you are helping them with the proper dental things like toothpaste, toothbrushes, showing them how to brush their teeth, different things that can be done. Do you really feel, or do you have any documentation? That's what we need to know. Documentation that shows that just the fluoride in the water is doing this.
Yes, studies show fluoride decreases disease in communities by 25%. And I can share a study with you. I'd also like to refer you to Matt Crispin. He is the president of the Children's Oral Health Alliance in Wisconsin. So he can also, I believe he's on this call and can answer questions as well.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, if there's anything that you can send to the council, I'll say that to anybody. If they have anything that they want to share with us, they can send it to the council members, because we'll be looking at this at council next week on the 21st. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. And there's one other thing. Have you seen the testimony that was presented in this case with the claims about the toxicity of fluoride?
Kelly?
No, I have not.
Okay, that's something too that you should look at also. Okay, just to, to be rounded on this. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thank you,
Celestine?
Alder. Next, we have Chris Neurath. Chris, can you please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
My name is Chris Neurath. I'm the research director of the American Environmental Health Studies Project. I live in Lexington, Massachusetts, 21 Byron Ave, 02420. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. I'm not going to give you my opinion on the neurotoxic risks of water fluoridation for children, but the opinions of the world's leading experts. The National Toxicology Program of NIH has spent the last 3 years reviewing the evidence that fluoride is a developmental neurotoxin. They concluded, quote, "Fluoride is presumed to be a cognitive neurodevelopmental hazard to humans based on a consistent pattern of findings," unquote. The NTP identified 149 human studies and 339 animal studies. The large majority of these found a neurotoxic effect. What are experts recommending based on this scientific evidence? They advise pregnant mothers and infants to avoid fluoridated water. I'm going to read a few short quotes from these experts that were published in leading scientific journals within the last year. The first two are Dr. Howard Hu and Dr. Bruce Lanphier, both world experts in early life exposures to environmental chemicals, including lead, pesticides, and other things. Both have done groundbreaking work on lead's effects on children, and more recently on fluoride and its effect on IQ. They write, quote, "There is no benefit of systemic exposure to fluoride during pregnancy for the prevention of caries in offspring. We found that fluoride exposure during infancy predicts diminished nonverbal intelligence in children. In the absence of any benefit, it is prudent to limit fluoride exposure using non-fluoridated water." A third expert is Dr. Philippe Grandjean of Harvard, another recognized world authority on neurotoxicity. He writes, quote, "Elevated fluoride intake during early development can result in IQ deficits that may be considerable. There is little doubt that developmental neurotoxicity is a serious risk associated with elevated fluoride exposure due to community water fluoridation." That's what the world experts in environmental health say. What do the editors of leading scientific journals like the Journal of the American Medical Association say? In a podcast editorial, two editors said this. Dr. Rivara, "The effect size is really quite large. The results are really startling." Dr. Kostakis, "Right, an effect size which is sizable on par with lead." Rivara, "So if mothers now come into their doctor's offices and ask the pediatrician what to do, what are you going to say?" Kostakis, "I think I would advise them to drink bottled water or filtered water." Rivara, "Yeah, the other thing is that some people may not be able to afford bottled water."
Thank you very much. Your time has expired.
Sorry, Chris. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Dr. Beth Neary. Dr. Neary, can you please unmute yourself and we will get going. Please also state your name and address for the committee.
Can my video go up too?
You know what? Hold on one second.
I tried to start it, but it said I can't.
Let's see. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
All right.
All right, you gave me permission.
There we go. Yes. Okay. All right. Give me one more second.
Really fast. My address is 428 Virginia Terrace, Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I am a pediatrician. I've practiced general pediatrics in Madison for many years. I've actually taught at the UW Medical School, but I'm not representing the UW Madison today. I am representing myself.
Could you speak up a little bit louder? We can't quite hear.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I said I am representing myself. I am not representing UW Hospital. Just want to make that very clear. Okay, so I want to say that if you asked me last year how I felt about fluoride in municipal water supplies, I would have pounded the desk and said, it is the greatest public health advance in the last 50 years. And people who want to remove it are on the fringe. That's what I would have said last year. But today I have a different opinion. And here's why. New research changes thinking, and new research should always change thinking. The study that was published in the JAMA Pediatrics in 2019 was an impressive study in a credible peer-reviewed journal. And the data in that study was so contradictory to long-held beliefs that about the medical world and fluoridation, that paper was scrutinized so hard that I actually spoke to the researcher and he told me he had to go through many hoops to get that published. So they really looked at that very vigorously. And they found that male children of pregnant moms who drank fluoridated water had drops in IQ scores from 3 to 5 points. So you say, Dr. Neary, what's 3 to 5 points? 3 to 5 points is a big deal. 3 to 5 points was what Dr. Lampier found in lead, in low levels of lead. And that changed what the CDC recommended about lead. It actually, he made the CDC change the recommendation, or his research did. It's impressive. A change of 3 to 5 points is significant. So, and I don't want you to think it was one study that has changed my mind. I read numerous studies, and as somebody already numerous people have said, the National Toxicology Program reviewed many, many studies. And so here's the thing that I say to myself now. Am I willing to sacrifice cognitive development for the child's rest of their life to prevent a cavity or two when we have other ways to prevent cavities? And the answer to myself is no. If my daughter said, Mom, should I drink fluoridated water? I'm pregnant. I would tell her no. And if she was going to make formula for the 0 to 6 month old baby, I would tell her don't do that. So I'm a pediatrician. I've had firm beliefs for the last, I won't say how many years, but I'll tell you that I'm changing my thinking because I'm not going to sacrifice a brain for a few cavities. And I want you to look at the research carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Doctor, what was the paper that you were referring to, the research paper?
It was, the paper that was published in JAMA Pediatrics in 2019. And Dr. Lampier is one of the authors on that paper.
What is it called?
Brenda, do you have the full title in front of you? Oh, wait. I can send it to you.
Could you send that to the council?
Okay.
Send that out to all of us. Thank you. Okay, Celestine.
Okay, thank you, Alder. Chair, next is Lisa Hansen. Ms. Hansen, can you please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee?
Sure, Lisa Hansen, 217 Allard Avenue in Green Bay. I don't come to this claiming to be an expert. Brenda has done a ton of work on this over the last decade that we've been in contact regarding this. And I've only really started looking into it when my son was born, and he's 10 now, so it hasn't been that long. But I come at this kind of as a parent to 3 children. I grew up in Alloway in the 80s when the fluoride levels were very high in the water. And I still have dental fluorosis from it. My teeth are stained and have been since I was a kid. I also had numerous dental caries, and I realize that this is very, causation does not equal, but it's very anecdotal. I understand that, but, we're trying to do the best thing for our kids. And obviously I had issues with the fluoride. And so then it takes it to a whole different level where I have to be, and luckily I'm privileged enough to be able to do this, to put expensive filters on my water so that I can take all the fluoride out, because even bottled water doesn't necessarily protect you. But as far as the dental care, we see a dentist in Sturgeon Bay, Dr. Jennifer Olson and Dr. Kevin Clare, and they do not use fluoride in their practice. As far as dentists go, if you're looking for what the experts are saying, these are people who will not use that on children or anyone. We don't get fluoride treatments at all. Going back to what Brenda said about how this is really what blows my mind about this, is that we would never think to add a drug to our water source. And the fact that we do that with fluoride and saying that it's a one size fits all situation, I have a really hard time with that you're adding something to my water without my permission and I got to pay for it. And then I have to pay to have it filtered out of my water. Even toothpaste tubes say don't swallow the toothpaste. And, I know that there are all those old studies about how fluoride is the best thing in the world and top 10 inventions, medical, whatever. But, the first studies that I was aware of was about topical application, not ingestion. How can you equate topical and ingestion in the same breath? And a lot of those studies as far as ingestion were flawed as well, not blind. There was a lot of bias in there. So I would really love to not have to worry about my kids drinking the tap water. And, I already have the filter, so I guess that's a moot point, but I don't want to have to worry about that. I don't want other people in the city to have to worry about that. People who are not as don't have the ability to buy a filter for their water. I want them to have the same consideration that I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I was going to ask a quick question. Let's see, where is that? You said you have a filter at home. What kind of filter is it?
We started first with a Berkey Royal, but then we did, which is a freestanding, huge thing on my counter. But we did independent testing where we used brand new filters, sent it into a place actually in the valley somewhere, and it came back that those filters, the fluoride filters for the Berkey, did not filter out the waters. So now we use an Aquasana reverse osmosis under the sink thing. So, the little spigot comes out of where our soap holder would be. So, neither of those were cheap. And,
right.
But it filters everything because we had that independently tested and it took out everything.
Okay. And I realized I did some research on some of the filters out there too. And they were mentioning they had a study about a Brita filter that didn't really get the fluoride out, zero water, and pure filters did. But like I said, it is an expense. So
well, and any style, take it out. If you get a Brita, I've had Brita pitcher filters because I thought it was doing something, but none of those filters really do anything. You need something. There are like gravity filters too, like the Sangen, I think is the name of it, where it filters through like sand. And they're just very intricate, but they're also a huge expense and you need to have a place to put these things too.
Right. Well, thanks. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes. Next is, thank you, Alder. Next is Griffin Cole, DDS. Dr. Cole, can you please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee?
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we certainly can.
Okay.
Yes.
As you said, I am Griffin Cole. I'm a dentist in Austin, Texas, 1301 West 25th Street, 78705. I've been in practice for 27 years. And in the first year, I promoted fluoridation. And I applied fluoride to my patients' teeth because that's what I was taught. That's what I was told by my professors. And so I believe it. Why would I not? But over the next year, I just spent a little bit of time, very little, and this is back in 94, looking at the science, and I started to realize that I wasn't told everything. And it became a very easy decision shortly thereafter to stop doing that, to stop promoting it. And since that time, I've spent 20 plus years now trying to fight this in many cities in Texas. I gave a presentation to about 400 dentists in September in Boston, and I only had an hour, which was not enough time. But in that hour, all I did was rebuke the comments that are stated as facts by the ADA, by the American Fluoridation Society, by CDC, all these people that write out these things saying that they're facts, FACTS. And I can just tell you, if you go to the ADA's website and look up their fluoridation facts, you're going to find almost nothing factual. And I'm not even joking about that. You can find science to dispute every comment that they make about how wonderful this toxic thing is. I can make this real simple for people who don't know about the science, because you got a lot of great experts on this panel. These are some of the greatest in the country, if not the world, that are speaking tonight. But I can make this down to three issues, three inherent critical flaws with water fluoridation. And I do this to all these small towns that are trying to actually decide on this. Number one, it's not medical grade fluoride. We've already heard that. It's not sodium fluoride. It's not calcium fluoride. It is a toxic waste product from the fertilizer industry. And don't let any dentist try to tell you, yeah, we hear that, but when it gets in water, it dissociates like regular fluoride. That's not true. That was disproven by PhD Westendorf back in 1975. Not medical grade fluoride. Number two, it doesn't do its intended function. There's never been a clinical randomized trial to prove that it actually works, because it doesn't. So it doesn't do the function of trying to prevent cavities. And number three, and most important, there is no dose control. Okay, an infant baby that's being fed, through a bottle where most of the diet is water is getting way more fluoride than somebody, say, my size. So it's not even a comparison. You can't prescribe any medicine without having a dosage based on weight, height, size, all those things. And I think this is what it really comes down to, because you can buy all the filters you want, just like I can too, but the people that can't afford it are who we should be fighting for. They shouldn't have to make that choice. You should have clean water that's safe to drink.
Thanks. Thank you, Doctor. Could you take a question or two?
Absolutely.
All right. I just, I've written up sheets, bullet points against fluoridation and bullet points in favor of fluoridation, and just the research I've been doing, looking at it, and just trying to be as open-minded as possible. In favor of fluoridation, one of the comments made in testifying some time ago, maybe 3 years ago, it says the majority of cavities occur in 20 to 30% of the population. The disadvantaged bear a disproportionate burden of these cavities, and this is an example of people who live in non-fluoridated areas. Can you comment on that at all?
So you're saying that you read somewhere that people who are in non-fluoridated areas have higher amounts of cavities?
Yeah.
That's not true.
Okay, well, I just wanted you to comment on that.
Yeah, there's been plenty of studies to show that that's not true. And in fact, the largest landmark study back in 1986 by the NIH, where they said, look, we're looking at 39,000 kids, which is a huge study, right? They looked at it and they said, we were comparing fluoridated versus non-fluoridated. When all was said and done, they said there was an 18 to 30% reduction in decay. So the Safe Water Foundation says, let us see your data. Let's see if that's really true. When all was said and done, it came down to about 0.06%, 1/6 of one surface of one tooth. It's not even a contest. It doesn't do what they say it does. And the systemic effects that you've already heard from lots of people today far outweigh that small little benefit that it may have.
You also find that fluoride can be ingested through the skin and through the lungs instead of just the mouth?
For sure. For sure. So now you got to have your whole house filtered, right?
So I'm just reading some things, and I just wanted you to answer. We may talk to you later on too. Can you stick around for a little while?
I'll try. I've been on since 5:30.
Yeah, thank you. You can see what local government's like. It's a lot of fun.
Believe me, I've been up with my city council many, many times, so I know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm impressed with most of the alders, by the way, because I love the way that they're dealing with the other issues. So you're thinking.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. Celestine, whenever you're ready.
Okay, yes. Next we have Jeff Harpt. Jeff, can you please give your name and address? Unmute yourself and give your name and address for committee.
Yeah, my name is Jeff Harpt. I live at 440 South Van Buren, right here in Green Bay, and 54301. And I think it's quite clear from the experts we've heard tonight that this is a neurotoxin we're talking about, and that I just don't feel it should be put in my water supply, that of my children, that of people I love, and I think it's an expense we could do away with at the water department. That's always good. And I'd like to address the young lady who spoke about working in the downtown, in the Green Bay schools, some of the disadvantaged schools, and about the amount of tooth decay that was seen there. And I would point out that that's tooth decay found in kids who are drinking fluoridated water. So I don't think the fluoridated water is benefiting them. I think that there's other dental issues in terms of lifestyle, and I commend her and her organization for working with them and teaching them probably better habits in taking care of their teeth. I think some of the diets served in the school districts are high in sugar. I think that's one of the problems we have with tooth decay in this city. But I think I don't think the city should a neurotoxin in our water, and I think I'll keep it at that. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your consideration on this topic.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. And next we have Matt Crespin. Mr. Crespin, can you please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the committee? Mr. Crespin?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we certainly can.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Matt Crispin. I am the Associate Director at Children's Health Alliance of Wisconsin, which is affiliated with Children's Wisconsin, based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I live I work at 6737 West Washington in West Dallas, Wisconsin. And I'm here tonight to speak in support of continued fluoridation of Green Bay's water. A couple of key things I want to just make sure I reiterate. First off, fluoride is naturally occurring, and it is a mineral, and it occurs in nearly every single body of water and every source of drinking water in our country and really around the world. So there is some fluoride in all water, whether it be groundwater or surface water that we drink from our lakes and from the ground. However, we add fluoride to ensure that we help protect teeth. And there are studies, as Kelly shared, that show that fluoride does reduce decay by up to 25% in communities that don't fluoridate. There are cities that have removed fluoride from their drinking water and have seen an uptick in decay rates in their community. It's not the fluoride alone that does this, so it's a combination of things. Our organization oversees a school-based dental sealant program like Kelly's in more than 1,000 schools across Wisconsin. We partner with Delta Dental of Wisconsin and the State Department of Health. The alderpersons should have received a letter from us today that is in representation of various organizations that support fluoridation in Wisconsin. So those include Children's Wisconsin, HSHS Children's Hospital that's located right in Green Bay, organizations like Delta Dental that ensure children and families across the state who know the importance of fluoridation in their community. It's also from organizations like the Wisconsin Dental Association and the Wisconsin Dental Hygienists Association, who are part of larger national organizations who have policy that support this. These are hundreds of thousands of dentists, dental hygienists, in addition to thousands of pediatricians from the American Academy of Pediatrics who support community water fluoridation. It's been talked about that there's this recent case that's pending, and in regards to more recent studies, there's been a couple of studies, one that debunked a myth that's often promoted by those who oppose fluoride around the cause of osteosarcoma. That's now been disproven with more recent research. There's also studies that were published by the Archives of Toxicology, which is a group of European researchers that addressed the IQ issue. And I'm just going to finish by reading a quote that says, they concluded, based on the totality of the current available scientific evidence, the present review does not support the presumption that fluoride should be assessed as a human developmental neurotoxin at the current exposure levels in Europe. So we really need to listen to the experts like the CDC who support this, the Dental Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and continue to promote this safe and effective practice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Matt, I'd like to ask a question too. and this is off the favoring fluoride issue. One of the comments made that I read some time ago was the 2006 National Research Council has reviewed the EPA standard of how much fluoride is allowed in water before health issues begin to show up. And it has been at 4 parts per million, which is 6 times higher than what exists in the water today. The only health effect from fluoride is on the enamel of the teeth. They also found that there are no musculoskeletal effects, no thyroid issues, no cancer, no neurotoxicity, and no IQ issues, among others. These are in favor of fluoride. Can you comment on that?
Well, I'd like to. Sure. These are experts that have reviewed the science, and they're sharing with you that there are no issues when it comes to that. In regards to the levels of fluoride in our drinking water, in Green Bay and across the state of Wisconsin, where more than 90% of people that are on public water supplies receive the benefits of fluoridated water, that level is at 0.7 parts per million. Many of the studies who those opposed fluoridation cite are done in rural parts of the world where levels of fluoride are in sometimes as high as 18 parts per million. So you really can't compare those two things. If you want to take a medication, you can take a medication that helps address something, but cause problems. But if you take the right amount of it, it helps an issue. And so that is what fluoridation does. And so, fluoride in Wisconsin, as I said, the recommendation is at 0.7 parts per million. And this body took up this issue in 2017 and voted to continue to support fluoridation in their community. And there's really not been new research that shows that any organization such as the dental associations, the medical associations, the CDC has changed their stance and is now recommending that communities stop fluoridating their water because of any recent research. And so, this body, along with many other Wisconsin cities like Milwaukee, cities like Madison, large Wisconsin communities continue to provide this great benefit to the citizens in their community for a very, very low cost that does a great deal of work at preventing disease.
There was one other point too. There was a study done in Calgary, Canada, along with Edmonton some time ago. You may be familiar with it. They said there was at least a 17.9% jump in cavities after they stopped fluoridating the water. And their cavity rates climbed at least 71% from the time they stopped. Have you read about this, or do you understand that there might be other communities that have taken fluoride out of the water and what effect it's had?
Yeah, that's actually the Canadian study and the Canadian cities that I was referring to in my testimony. One of the more, and I'll admittedly let you know that it's not recent, but in the 60s, the city of Anago in Wisconsin removed fluoride from their drinking water, and they saw a pretty significant increase in young children in tooth decay. And shortly thereafter, after about a couple of years and seeing that dramatic increase, they resumed their fluoridation project.
Okay, I'm familiar with that too. Thank you, Matt. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Next is Lisa C. Lisa C., can you please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the committee?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Lisa Crozier. My address is East 327 Lings Corner Road, Denmark, Wisconsin. I want to thank you for giving us this time to talk about this very important topic with water fluoridation. And I have a master's degree from Wisconsin in food science. I've been teaching biochemistry locally here for over 20 years. And I kind of come at this topic as a consumer, as a mom, and as a scientist who's studied food nutrition for decades. My employer is not being represented in any way, shape, or form with any of my testimony. This is me speaking from my heart and my knowledge and my experiences. I want to mention that the last person who spoke in favor mentioned that you can take medication at a certain dose. And so we're admitting that we are medicating everybody for what we think will help a certain amount of people. So here again, I sat through and listened to the last couple of hours of the mask issue. We have to think about group benefits and individual benefits. I really appreciate the dentist I've had for over 20 years, my orthodontist, the ones that have worked on our 5 children. OHP does wonderful work. We have a lot of good dentists and healthcare professionals in Northeast Wisconsin. But we have to think about that gentleman from Milwaukee also said at current exposure levels, fluoride doesn't do anything. Well, we know exposure levels differ according to body weight and age, so children get exposed to more fluoride than adults would. The logic of this, from my point of view, thinking about the periodic table of the elements and those halogens and the idea that we need iodine in our bodies, and fluoride is right above iodine in the periodic table. It displaces, fluoride displaces iodine. And there is the logic of this that kind of made me think differently than how I learned in college about fluoride, is that there is absolutely no enzyme, body biomolecule. There's no reason for your body to use fluoride, and your body doesn't use fluoride for anything. It displaces calcium in teeth, which is what the perceived benefit might be. Also, not all cities fluoridate water. Right now, Portland, Oregon does not fluoridate its water. San Diego, California, big cities here. Honolulu, Hawaii, Wichita, Kansas. We don't do this to everybody. For years and years, we used DDT, thalidomide. Science changed, always look to the newest and best studies that we have. So I do not support water fluoridation. I think we have other ways to deal with cavities. And I hope that the city of Green Bay takes this very seriously and saves money.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
Certainly.
go ahead, Alder.
Yeah, I think because of your background and everything, my question is, do you feel that the reason that we are having problems with cavities, we still are getting cavities in our children, and that, is it because our diet has changed? We are, I think we're consuming so much more sugar than we used to consume.
Correct. The basic teaching, yes. The basic understanding of cavities is that there are bacteria that normally live in your mouth, that whenever there are carbohydrates in that mouth, the bacteria digest, and I tell my students, they poop out acid. So there's acid attacks on your teeth. So if we are chewing gum to increase the salivary flow to buffer the pH and get rid of that acid, or if we're brushing our teeth to get rid of that acid, then we don't have the cavity attacks. We are snacking all the time. We are sucking on lattes all the time. There's sugar in our mouth real frequently. And then we eat soft foods too. So diet really plays a role in dental caries. That is very, very true.
Something's happening to your...
You're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Okay.
Try it again.
Oh, okay. So as far as dental caries, sugars are eaten by the bacteria that are in your mouth. And that acid that those bacteria will exhaust out will cause dental caries. So we have diets that are pretty high in sugar, and that will lead to dental caries.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. Next is Amanda Sleeper. Amanda, can you please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the committee?
My name is Amanda Sleeper. I live at 1416 Road in Landenberg, Pennsylvania, 19350. I'm speaking to you today. I'm a PhD in pharmacology and neurobiology from Yale University. And I wanted to speak a little bit about fluoride hypersensitivity. So in 2012, I was diagnosed personally with a fluoride hypersensitivity. I didn't even know that this existed until I got this diagnosis. So at that point, I went and I read some of the scientific literature, and I was surprised to find out that these hypersensitivities have been characterized since the mid-20th century. It affects about 1% up to 5% of the population. And this is fluoride at the levels of concentration that we get in our public water supply when it's fluoridated. Because fluoride passes through the digestive tract lining as well as the blood-brain barrier, this can present with a number of different symptoms, and it varies from individual to individual. So this can include digestive distress, mouth ulcers, fatigue, excessive thirst, headaches and migraines, blurred vision, skin irritation, worsened allergies, joint pain. So there's a lot of symptoms out there, and for some people it's very debilitating. So when I found out that I had this diagnosis, I decided to try to remove fluoride from my drinking water, my cooking water, my toothpaste, and beverages and foods like tea and wine that are high in fluorides. And I was really amazed to see the difference that this made in my overall health. I've lived in fluoridated communities since I was born, so I never experienced not having fluoride until this point. My energy was amazing. I got sick less. I didn't need antibiotics. I could exercise more. My allergies got better, and some terrible rashes that I had on my hands went away and never came back. So having had this experience, my concern for the general public is that there are a lot of people out there suffering because of the fluoride in the water, and they might not even know it. And even if they do get a diagnosis, it's very difficult to remove that fluoride from the water. So there's only a few systems that are really effective in doing that, distillation and reverse osmosis. And to do that in a whole house level is very expensive and prohibitive for most people. I feel that putting the fluoride in the water as a therapeutic agent kind of denies people one of the basic principles of medicine, which is informed consent. So those of us that are sensitive really have a hard time, saying no to that and avoiding things that are in the public water supply. I just hope that you'll consider this population of people when you're making up your mind whether or not to continue this procedure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Amanda. Amanda, I'd like to ask a question of you as well.
Yes.
On my bullet points against fluoridation sheet, I just wanted, there's a couple things that I was concerned about, and I'm just wondering if you could weigh in on it. It has to do with the thyroid. So consequences from fluoride ingestion, let me try again. Consequences from fluoride ingestion may be low thyroid function, aesthetically unpleasing teeth, a poorly functioning digestive tract, and IQ and attention issues. The thyroid produces several, especially thyroxine T4, which influences metabolism, growth and development, body temperature, and crucial brain development during infancy and childhood. Fluoride contributes to low thyroid functioning by displacing iodine, which is instrumental in the production of thyroid hormones. I just, like I said, I'm gathering data on both sides, but can you talk to any of that?
Yes, so what you said is correct, and it does disrupt directly the thyroid function. I also believe that there's some other pathways through which that might happen. There's emerging data that shows that fluoride might affect the gut microbiome. If you're familiar with some of this from the wellness space, but the bacteria in our gut are very important for our overall health and maintaining our nutrients. If fluoride disrupts the presentation of the bacteria that are naturally in your gut, it can also lead to a lot of nutritive problems that can have an effect on the thyroid.
Okay. And they're also talking, okay, thank you. They also talk about fluoride fluorine being naturally occurring in water and such. And it sounds like the folks that are against fluoride are saying that you know, it's a neurotoxin and it's being added. So there is some natural element, you know, fluoride, it does occur in nature, but I'm just having a hard time understanding, like, is that an issue just having those parts of fluoride in the system without adding more into a water system?
So the levels of fluoride that occur naturally vary from area to area, just depending on you know, the ground soil in the area, local pollutants. So in some areas, fluoride might ultimately need to be removed by the water systems as we find the emerging harm from it, if it's natural. But it is there, and it could be a problem for hypersensitive individuals, and they would still have to remove that.
Well, thank you for your testimony.
Okay, thank you.
I'm good, Celestine.
May I ask a question?
Oh, yes, go ahead. Yes,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was wondering if she knows, because the natural occurring fluoride, is that completely different from this fluoride? Because this, from what I'm understanding, this fluoride that they're putting in is a byproduct of fertilizer. Is there a difference in those? You know?
There are various forms of the fluoride compound. As far as naturally occurring fluorides, it might be helpful if we share, I'd have to get the references for you, but there are a number of studies that look at toxicity of fluoride that is naturally occurring. There are studies out of India and China, and they find similar problematic effects in these communities as well.
Okay.
Does that
all right.
help? Would you like to see some studies, or does that clarify
Yes.
it all?
Could you send that to the council? Could you send that to our council? You know,
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Chair. Next is Diego. Diego, please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee. Diego, are you there? Okay, we will move on to the next person. Mike Shea Jr., please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the committee.
Mike Shea, 2751 Woodstock Court, Green Bay 54311. So I came for the masks and stayed for the fluoride. As a
good for you.
Yeah. As a local business owner, sometimes I look at things a little differently, and the city is something I look at as a business sometimes. And in this case, I have some things to consider. When you're looking at the city as a business, there's a couple of questions that need to be asked before you start making decisions on these things. The first is, what is adding fluoride to the water supply costing us? Looking at the budget for the Green Bay Water Utility, they list for this coming year a budget of $302,700 for chemicals, but it's not broken out. So they also don't list anything for medications or health or wellness. The only thing I could find that might cover this is chemicals. In the past, they've spent about $280,000 on this, on chemicals. So the question I would like the council, the city, to consider when thinking about chlorination is, what's it costing, or fluorination, what is it costing us to do that? And would there be a cost savings versus kids getting cavities or finding a different way to treat those cavities or whatnot in the city? Is this the most cost-effective way to do it? The second question to ask is, where is the fluoride coming from? Again, looking through the budgets and past financials, I can't see anything that says where the fluoride is actually coming from. What, if it is coming from fertilizer plants versus natural sources? Is there any kickbacks from companies for taking the fluoride. Things like that would raise flags to me. I'm not an expert in this. I really don't know much about it, but these are just two glaring things that pop out at me. The people that are taking this fluoride don't have a good grasp on where it's coming from before it gets in their water, and they don't have a grasp on what it's costing as a city versus the cost of fixing the cavities or whatever other reason you have for fluorinating water. So that's all I had.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for your patience, by the way.
Okay. Next we have Chris Neidl. Chris Neidl, please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee.
Hi, good evening. My name's Chris Neidl. I live outside Washington, D.C. at 15505 Avery Road in Rockville, Maryland, 20855. My background is in chemical engineering. I've got a master's degree in chemical engineering, and I'm also one of the attorneys that represented Brenda and the other plaintiffs in the ongoing lawsuit against the EPA under TSCA. And there are a couple things that I wanted to say. A lot of them have been said, so I want to focus on a few of the pro-fluoride points. And I just want to finish up one of the points that Michael Connett was raising when he was saying, you know, if we look at the most vulnerable among us, which are clearly when it comes to brain development, those are the fetal development stage and early infancy stage. The studies are clear that when you're exposed to fluoride during those two critical windows of brain development, that there's a high risk of particularly neurotoxicity. And at the same time, there is no benefit. So we're not doing a cost-benefit analysis there. We're imparting risk without adding any benefit in terms of any public health outcome that could be viewed as positive. But as far as the pro-fluoride talking points, a lot of which we've heard, the first one, the idea that fluoride is natural, you know, arsenic and lead are both natural, right? We spend lots of money to remove arsenic and lead from our water, despite the fact that they're natural. And I don't think there's anyone here on this call that would willingly ingest any amount of arsenic or lead simply because it was natural. I think that, you know, that notion is just, nothing about that being natural makes it good for brain development. The second point that was raised earlier, that the ADA and, you know, all these various dental and medical groups have not come out against fluoride. Well, the editors of the Journal of the American Medical Association have come out and said that they would recommend pregnant women avoid fluoride. Well, what does that do for the pregnant women or those women that are considering getting pregnant in your community? Especially when you're looking at the cost of filtration. A lot of people have talked about filtration. I don't want to get into that, but it's extremely difficult. It's costly when you talk about whole house filters. You talk about filtering your ice supply, it becomes a challenge. Another related point, the CDC, we heard pro-fluoride people repeatedly hammering the CDC and saying, oh, they continue to support it. Well, they also say that the evidence of benefit is predominantly topical application to adult teeth. So the CDC that these pro-fluoride people continue to stand behind, the CDC itself says it only works to benefit teeth if it's applied topically to your adult teeth, not through ingestion. Okay. We also heard, and that is true. I see someone shaking his head.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired.
Thank you, Chris. Chris, I was just going to ask a quick question here. You know, you're involved, you know, I think in 2013, we listened to issues on fluoride in the water, 2016, 17 as well. So this is our third go around with this topic. So I think one of the reasons that, you know, anytime an issue is stopped for a couple of years, the reason it's brought back is because of potential new research. So I know that, I guess I'm just asking, in your opinion, you know, part of me says that, you know, you have this court case that was out there, and that takes on its own life, so to speak. but what new research in the last 3 years has been good to the point where we need to reconsider this issue?
I mean, that is, I think, the question, because the fact of the matter is that in the last 3 to 4 years, starting in 2017, the two groups that Michael Conant mentioned, and I think Dr. Neary mentioned as well, the Element Study Group and the Murex Study Group, both of those groups have done what's called a prospective cohort study, okay? And that is a study on human beings rather than animals. And those are studies done, they're viewed as the next best thing to a randomized controlled trial, okay? And one of the points that I would make is that there is no randomized controlled trial that shows that fluoride has a benefit, okay? So we have these prospective cohort studies that just recently came out and in the last handful of years, and both of those studies are done at levels. Number one, they're done with fluoride biomarkers. So they looked at, for example, urinary fluoride levels in pregnant women. So they're not looking, trying to model or estimate exposure. They actually have measures of exposure. And what those two studies both showed is that the effects of fluoride, particularly during these two developmental windows, are comparable to that of lead and range anywhere from 2.5 to 8 IQ points, depending on the study and what the measures were that they were looking at. So, there has been a debate. And as you point out, there's been a debate that's gone on for years about fluoride. The evidence of neurotoxicity has been increasing to the point that we now have these two NIH-funded, extremely well-conducted, extremely peer and critically reviewed that all point in the same direction. When we have, to contrast that, the CDC saying that there is no benefit to ingesting this. And so we have a large amount of evidence of risk now culminating in these recent studies, coupled against very little, if any, evidence of benefit. And I know there was discussion of cities that show an increase in cavities when there's fluoride removed. There are also studies that show evidence in cities where fluoride is removed and there is no increase. So the studies on benefits are highly conflicting. You can look at that literature any way you choose, but the studies on risk are, at this point, very clear.
All right. One other thing. Have you heard of a book called The Devil's Poison?
No, I have not heard.
Okay. All right. I was reading a little bit from that too. Well,
I am, however, aware. I have litigated against the fertilizer industry in Florida, and I am very aware of Mosaic, the one who produces the majority of this fluoride waste product that's used for fluoridation. And I've seen their rail cars coming out of their mines. So it is not a myth that this is largely generated as a waste product that has no place other than a landfill. And so we're putting it in our drinking water.
Well, again, I thank you for your testimony. Like I said, we on council, we need to look at, the last time we heard this issue and then now, and then try to figure out any new developments that have come along. So if there's anything you can share that way, we can talk to Brenda and others too. But so
absolutely. Thank you guys.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Would you characterize this as the same thing as, I believe asbestos was a byproduct, and so they were trying to sell it. They need to because it costs money to landfill or whatever, get rid of some of these byproducts. Would you characterize this the same as the asbestos situation, where we found out years later, all these studies have finally come out how toxic the asbestos is to people?
Well, I think it's difficult to compare this directly to asbestos, but what I would say is the comparison where industry has a history of finding creative new uses for its waste products. And it's important to point out, I think you made the reference, that it's not just that it's a waste product, it's that it's a waste product that they have a liability for and they have to pay to remove. So originally fluoride was being released into the air by these factories in Florida. And in order to clean that up, they had to start consolidating it with scrubbers. And when they did that, then they needed to find a way to get rid of it. So it is this it is this problem that the industry creates a waste and then they're looking for beneficial ways to use it. Another example was MTBE in gasoline. That was a waste stream that they found a use for to dilute the gasoline, and that caused a lot of groundwater problems. So I think the theme is something that we've seen before, where an industry has a waste product that's not only not making them money, but actually costing them money. And now they found a creative way to use it to their advantage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
I noticed that Dr. Johnny Johnson's here. Did you want to speak sometime soon or not? Or do you want to wait? Celestine?
Yes. Well, let me just
It's up to you.
I don't think
I'm enjoying the show right now because this is a repeat of what occurred in Calgary back in October, the exact same scenario.
Johnny, give your address for the record.
I'd like to not give my exact address because I've received physical and overt threats from people here, as well as lawsuits. But I'm in Florida, in middle of Florida.
Okay.
But I have no problem speaking about it. But I'm just enjoying hearing the same information that has been done before. So I would be happy to wait until later.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just give me 1 second, Alder. Thank you. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Second. All right, we will go back. Excuse me, to the top of the screen. So we have Gary Cohen. Gary Cohen, please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee.
Gary Cohen, 6841 Chester Drive, Madison 53719.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the first thing is that even if fluoridation reduces cavities by 25%, most of the loss of people's teeth when they get older is not due to cavities, it's due to periodontal disease. And you don't hear very much talk about how great fluoride is to reduce periodontal disease, because it doesn't. That's the first thing. Secondly, you've heard people talk about filtering their water. I live in Madison, and we have really good minerals in our water. We have calcium, magnesium, and even strontium, all good for your teeth. Unfortunately, a lot of these filters take out everything. They take out all the beneficial minerals as well as the fluoride. I use a 3-stage filter that leaves the minerals in, takes out the heavy metals and organic chemicals that are dangerous. And one of the stages takes out fluoride. It uses bone char. So just for those who want a good way of purifying your tap water, and if you can afford it, that's a good way of doing it. Unfortunately, though, that doesn't help with bath water, and it doesn't help with shower water. And you need to have the best way would be a whole house filter, but those are very expensive. And for those of us who are renters, that's not practical. So that's my second point. And I think that was all. Those were the major points I wanted to make. Oh, one other thing. Fluoride is an enzyme poison. I know it's been found that at least 100 enzymes are poisoned by fluoride. And that's only because that's probably the number that have been studied. Our body can't function without enzymes. We have thousands of enzymes. And if every one of those was studied, I'm sure you would find thousands of enzymes that are poisoned by fluoride. So that's one of the basic reasons I think that fluoride is such a toxic material. It's not just a neurotoxin. And that's all I need to say now. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Aaron DeGroot. Please unmute yourself and give your Name and address for the committee.
Hi, I'm Aaron D. Groch from Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54302, 1625 Kimball Street. I appreciate the platform that you guys have been giving us. We've been here since 5:30 just to talk right now. I appreciate all the aldermen taking their time to listen to us. I have the perspective not as a professional, but more as a resident, which is pretty much all of us. I don't understand why the city or Wisconsin feels the need to put a toxin in our water supply to improve our teeth. It doesn't make any sense to have them make that decision for us. I expect pure water coming through I understand we need some additives to get it through the pipes, but we don't need fluoride. I have my own toothpaste. I have a water purifier because of fluoride. I would appreciate pure water coming through the water, and I can buy my own fluoride. And think of it like this. What if you put vitamin D in the water when there's no sun, or protein if you're exercising? You would never do that. It's not for everyone. Fluoride is not for everyone. It's on an individual basis. Some people need it. The majority of us don't. We have toothpaste. Another point is, imagine the money that you're going to save taking out the fluoride. I heard earlier today a sum of $300,000. Use that money for something else. Send toothpaste to schools. Awareness. I just want to end up, I appreciate Griffin Cole. I learned a lot from him right now. Brenda Sotomayor, of course, Jeff, and even Matt Crespin. I appreciate your opposing view. Everything about this has been positive, and I really appreciate everything. I want pure water coming through my pipes. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. I wanted to thank Gary too before for your testimony. I'm sorry I missed that, but thank you, both of you. All right, Celestine.
Okay. Next we have Galaxy 2.
That's me. Can you hear me?
Yes. Just give us 1 second. Excuse me. Just give me 1 second. All right. Please state your name and address for the committee.
My name is Dr. Diego Calderon. Currently, I am at South 10845 Troy Road in Sauk City, Wisconsin. Okay, I'm a doctor in veterinary medicine and surgery with a specialization in food animal production medicine and surgery. I have more than 30 years experience in my field. Also, I have more than 20 years of experience in research. Currently, I am collaborating with more than 10 different research teams at UW. However, I am expressing just my opinion here. I'm not talking in behalf of the university. So you may be thinking, what a veterinarian is doing talking about fluoride in public drinking water. Well, we found out about the toxic effects of fluoride just because the cattle show us the severe damage in the main organs like kidney, liver, heart, severe skeletal malformation, and damage of ligaments and tendons, decrease of the lifespan, and especially in young animals. And this occurs in a very small dose, like 30 parts per million. Currently, the approved concentration of fluoride in public water, it goes from 0.7 to 1.4 parts per million. And we're talking about a cow of 900 pounds. Can you imagine the effects of a human fetus or a newborn baby? So the intake range vary a lot. And the concentration that we found in public drinking water is all over the place. How we can guarantee that these levels are going to be low? I think it's time, and I invite you to use precautionary measurements for the well-being of the Green Bay citizens, especially the expecting mothers, their babies. Let's avoid to put our citizens at risk of rise toxicity. EPA already established that fluoride should be managed as a hazardous material. So let's wait and see the results of new research. Thank you so much for your time. I am open for any question.
Thank you, Doctor, for your testimony.
May I ask a question of the doctor?
Sure.
Go ahead, Alder.
Yeah, I missed the first part. When did you do the study and you found out the effects on the cattle?
I have not done any study personally, but the effects of fluoride are known for a long time, like since the 1800s or even before that. Alter Stewer was asking before about the effects of fluoride in water as a natural occurrence. And actually that was one of the signs that people found in the cattle. And then the people that were looking at that discovered that it was because fluoride was present in the water or the soil.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, the last person I have here is Nancy Quirk. She's the director of our water utility. Director Quirk.
Okay, my official title is general manager. But,
oh, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I wanted to just say a couple of things. I'm hearing a lot of this testimony, and I think that hopefully Robin from the state of Wisconsin Department of Health will come on, and Dr. Johnny Johnson too will come on to support what we've been doing. I want to assure you, as the general manager of the Green Bay Water Utility, my utmost concern is the health and safety of our citizens. We've taken one of the most aggressive lead service replacement programs in the country, and we're down to less than 100 lead services in our city, and we'll be finished by the end of this year. So we take this very seriously, the health and safety of our citizens. I've been in the water industry for 33 years. I just recently finished a term with the American Water Works Association on the Water Utility Council, where I was a regulatory chair. We worked with the technical advisory groups for many issues, such as compounds, lead and copper, microbiological activities, and fluoride was often was on some of our talks. I want to assure you that during my tenure as 6 years, and I just finished at the end of June, there was no reports that were brought through the federal government or the CDC while I was in tenure that would have alerted me to the fact that fluoride would be harmful to our citizens. I assure you that if a study would have come through that it would have said that to me, I would have brought this to the Common Council, because I will not protect our citizens for the health and safety of our people. Our chemical costs, I wanted to address that. We lump them together because we have to report them to the Public Service Commission, but we have chemicals in our ozone, which is a primary disinfectant that gets rid of all of our viruses. And we have some in that for some of the off-gassing. We have a coagulant chemical that we use to get particles together to get them settled out into the industry. We also have chemicals that will help with our filter beds as we're doing our filtering, our final filtration process to cleanse the water. We do add chlorine in the form of a sodium hypochlorite to keep our disinfection out in the distribution system from protecting it from regrowth and other microbiological activities. And we do add a small amount of fluoride, the 0.6 to 0.8 is what's recommended by the CDC, and we follow those recommendations. I was just recently, I am a professional engineer by trade, and I've worked in water utilities in Madison and Waukesha, and both those systems used fluoridated water, and they kept asking us, Children's Health Networks keep begging us to continue to add them. So I'm listening, Medical Association, American Dental Association, the Sun EPA. I'm looking to those experts and to the doctors and nurses that work in these areas for the best science that I can find. And as I talked to Alderman Stoyer today too, I mean, I will look at studies, but as of now, I have not seen anything credible enough for me to stop protecting our citizens.
Thanks.
Okay, Attorney Bungert needs to address the committee. Thank you, General Manager Quirk.
Thank you, Nancy.
Alders, before we move on, I just wanted to alert everybody as far as from a time management perspective, we have hit 10 p.m. at this point. We still do have 3 ordinances that we need to, that are still on the remainder of the agenda, along with 2 informational reports. Once we get to 11 p.m., I would strongly recommend we at that point recess for another meeting date. The suggested time would be in the afternoon on Thursday to resume discussions, simply because we are at that point going into a realm of lacking accessibility for public input with respect to the remainder of the agenda. So I just wanted to alert everybody at this point in our discussion, and whether the alders feel that we can complete the agenda tonight, or if we would like to go ahead and recess at 11.
I would like to continue. I don't know, committee?
I'd like to continue on. Alder Vanderleest.
Okay.
Would we like to resume that discussion at 11 to see where we are with our agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a citizen with his hand raised.
Yes, except for the fact that there are other people ahead of him. So Dean Hager, I do see that you have your hand raised. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go on to Mark David Zahn. Can you please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee?
Hello, my name is Mark David Zahn, 1100 Chantel Street, Green Bay. Since we are entering the realm of sleepy time, I'm going to keep this relatively short and sweet. I'm generally in support of keeping fluoride in the water. From my own research on the topic, most of the science that I've seen is kind of thin at best and requires a little bit more study before I would kind of go in that direction. And my suggestion, I don't know exactly how all the inner workings of city government work, but I would propose that, why don't we put this to a referendum? Let the citizens weigh in and make their own decision as far as whether this is something they want or don't want. I know we've had a lot of people come here tonight that are clearly all embedded in trying to get this removed from the water. And I would personally like to see my ability to have a say in this and have other people in the community give their own opinion through their vote. So that is all I had.
Thank you, Mark. Actually, that has been talked about a little bit, and I appreciate you bringing that forward. So that is something that we will discuss.
Okay, Chair, we have 3 other people who have raised their hands. So Paul Connett, can you please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee? Mr. Connett, I know you've been waiting a long time.
I'm here. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Please give your name and address for the committee.
My name is Paul Connett,
I live in Binghamton, New York, 104 Walnut Street, Binghamton, New York, 13905. I'm a retired professor of chemistry who specialized in environmental chemistry and toxicology. I spent the last 24 years researching fluoride's toxicity and co-authored a book on this subject in 2010. Excuse me. Okay. Water fluoridation has never been science-based. It is authority-based or belief in authority-based. It began in 1945 and it was endorsed by the US Public Health Service in 1950 without a single study having been completed. Endorsements are not the same as science. We've heard a lot about endorsements tonight, but it's not the same as science. Saying that fluoridation is safe and effective over and over again doesn't make it so. I will argue that the evidence that fluoride poses a risk to the fetal and infant brain is far stronger and more significant from a public health point of view than any evidence that ingesting fluoride benefits teeth. Here are some undeniable facts. The placental membrane does not protect the fetus from fluoride. Result, the highest dosage of fluoride in milligrams per kilogram body weight per day goes to the fetus. The blood-brain barrier is not fully protective until 6 months of age. And again, the second highest dosage goes to the bottle-fed baby. A bottle-fed baby in a fluoridated community gets between 100 and 200 times the amount of fluoride a breastfed baby gets. Between 1990 and 2017, there were many human and animal studies that showed that fluoride had the potential to damage the brain. But the bombshells came, as you've heard, since 2017. Since 2017, there have been 2 rigorous NIH-funded studies that showed that fluoride exposure to women during pregnancy is associated with IQ loss in offspring. Bashash 2017, Green 2019. The first from Mexico City, the second from Canada. Another study in 2020, another rigorous NIH-funded study showed that children who were bottle-fed as babies in fluoridated communities in Canada had lower IQs than children who were bottle-fed as babies in non-fluoridated communities. That's till 2020, a 9 IQ point difference. Meanwhile, no scientific study has clearly established that fluoride benefits teeth at the fetal stage or before the teeth have erupted. Most agree that the predominant benefit is topical and occurs after the teeth have erupted. Even if a very small benefit to teeth accrues during fetal or infant development, it would be a very poor public health policy to seek such a benefit at the expense of damaging the fetal and infant brain. Now, the National Toxicology Program has been reviewing this issue for 3.5 years. And in their draft review, which they published in 2019, they concluded—
Thank you, Mr. Connett. Your time has expired.
Perhaps someone can ask me a question about that.
Well, we may. Just stick around.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Next, we have Johnny Johnson. Mr. Johnson, if you would, or Dr. Johnson, can you please unmute yourself and state your name? You kind of already did, but just state your name and your general address for the committee.
Okay, thank you. Johnny Johnson, P.O. Box 2450, Chiefland, Florida. I'm with the American Fluoridation Society, and I have very much enjoyed the meeting tonight. If you ever want to go back and take a view at this type of meeting and all of these same arguments by Paul Connett and others here, go back and watch Calgary, Alberta's meeting back in October of last year, which was a 9-hour meeting strictly on fluoridation. And Calgary was considering refluoridating after a period since 2011 that they had stopped. They had in the first 3 years, a 146% increase in cavities when compared to continuously fluoridated Edmonton. Now, let me fall back. There are a couple of other wonderful, unfortunately, I say wonderful because they are cessations that have shown that absolutely cavities do increase exponentially once fluoridation is stopped. Okay, let me go back. I thought that this meeting was about the emerging and what was used in the EPA case. I will just kind of mention that the Green et al. Study, which I think we should probably listen to the authors of that study on, and in the case, which was about the Toxic Substance Act, not about actual fluoridation. The primary authors were Till, she was the primary author, Christine Till, and it's called the Green et al. Study. We'll be getting that to you. And a co-author, Angelise Martinez Meyer, who I know very well. She also served as a co-author on the Mexican studies. Mexico uses fluoridated salt, not the same as the United States. We use fluoridated water, as Canada does. Christine Till jumped out of the blocks after the study, went on Canadian TV and stated how millions of IQ points were going to be lost across the world by fluoridated water, and that we were going to have more people on the low end of the spectrum and less high-end people of high IQ. A few weeks later, Angelise Martinez came out and said, I do not agree with Christine Till that pregnant mothers can drink fluoridated water. A week later, Christine Till came back out and says, I think I may have been misunderstood. Yes, they can drink fluoridated water. So I don't see why we're arguing about something that the authors themselves say is okay to do. Now, I will be happy to go through any of the questions, any of the comments, including a filter that sells for $160 that takes out 87% of your fluoride. There is no known fluoride allergies to skin ever. I have a reference on that. Thank you for letting me speak to you. Keep your water fluoridated, please.
Thank you, Doctor.
May I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, Alder.
Mr. Johnson, the fluoride, if we decide, say the whole country decides not to fluorinate their waters, what will you do with your product? Does it have to go to a special landfill, or can it just be dumped anywhere?
Well, the product itself does not have to be disposed of. I live here in Florida, and if you drive by where Mosaic or any of the other companies, we have what's called Bone Valley here. We have a large resource of calcium carbonate, which contains fluoride and phosphate. And that is something that is, when it is not used, what is left over is sitting in what's called slag piles. They're sitting in piles around the plants. Now, we do get products. It's called a toxic waste byproduct by a lot of people, but it's a co-product. We're using phosphoric acid from this same process. If you look at your sodas, phosphoric acid is in your soda. That's what gives it the bite. It's also phosphate that we're getting to feed our animals in fertilizer, which in turns around, as well as drywall. Gypsum comes from this product. So it is a usable product, just as you would turn around and say a cow is a toxic waste byproduct of the meat industry. We get purses, we get cheese, we get milk, we get all these different organs and things. It is a misnomer, purposely said that way. And fluoride does not only come from phosphate industries, it comes from two other sources, but the primary amounts come from the phosphate industry. It is a very pure and pure product that's very cheap. We don't have to mine rock and treat it, which would give you the exact same acid, that fluoridation acid to use. It is something that we can buy inexpensively, and it's pure. It's tested by the National Sanitation Foundation, American Water Works Association, and has to meet the strict requirements of the EPA, or it cannot be used. This is not some willy-nilly process.
Would your, if your slag pile ended up completely going into a water supply, a river, stream, whatever, would the EPA come in and say that's a toxin and you have to take care of it?
Oh, with any, if it's chlorine or anything that is controlled by the EPA, and that's happened. It happened in a an area in Louisiana. It was not a fluoridation phosphate industry. It was some other industry there. They take precautions to line these piles with so that it does not leak. They also put berms around it to raise the area so it does not breach. Have breaches happened? Only one that I know of here in Florida. But yes, the EPA would rush in and take care of that. This is not something that's just off the wall. Well, let's just do this and we'll turn around and sell it, make some money. And I have been called a shill for the industry. I don't take a penny for what I do. I'm a retired disabled dentist, and I am giving back to my community and those around the world to help have better teeth than I did growing up without fluoridated water. Fluoridated water does reduce cavities by 25% more than even on top of fluoridated toothpaste, fluoridated products, and juices and halo effect. It's an additional 25%.
So you just stated it's not a toxin, but if your slag piles ended up contaminating a river, going into a river, whatever, that it would be ending up, the EPA would say it's a toxin that you cannot put it in the water.
You cannot dump anything in the water without appropriately treating it. We cannot dump raw sewage into water without appropriately treating it. So yes, ma'am, anytime you have, I didn't say it was a toxin. I said it is a product that cannot be dumped into any body of water. As others have said, they can't dump it, so they get rid of it by selling it to us and telling us it's good for our teeth. You cannot dump any product into the water without first neutralizing it and through proper protocols.
Really cool. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was so cool, so affordable.
Hello. Are you good there, Kath?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Johnny, I was going to ask you a couple of questions too. Are you done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in 2000, you testified in Green Bay three years ago, and you put in quite a bit of information. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions, and it's basically your testimony, but I just wanted you to expound on it a little bit. Fluoride is a mineral that exists in all water around the world, as well as the soil and the air. Seawater has fluoride levels at 1.4 parts per million, which is twice what you'd put in your water here. So I've heard people say that it's a neurotoxin. I've heard other people say it's a natural element. It's a little confusing at times. So,
as far as tea having fluoride in it, you were saying?
Oh, seawater?
Oh, no. Seawater. Yes, sir. No, seawater has natural fluoride levels between 0.8 parts per million and 1.4. Tea, if you asked about tea
I didn't ask about, no, I didn't.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Maybe I'm slurring my speech.
You guys have been going at it a long time.
Yeah, we have. Oh, well. Go ahead.
So, yes, it is naturally occurring, as Matt Crispin said, in all water, naturally in groundwater, surface water. It is typically at levels too low to prevent cavities. We discovered the benefit of fluoride back in 1901 quite by accident, and we did not know that it was fluoride that was helping to prevent cavities. But yes, there was a 30-year research project to go on and look at what was helping those teeth have less cavities, but to have some stains on them. And the Public Health Service found that once a probe was invented to detect fluoride in 1930, they tested areas where there were brown teeth and low cavities, and they tested areas that had good-looking teeth and low cavities. And they saw that the areas that it was too high, it was not too high, but it was at levels of 2 to 12 parts per million, you would get a brown stain on your teeth called severe dental fluorosis. And at low levels, you would have reduced cavities. And that's when the project from Mother Nature teaching us was started in 1945. And that's when it showed us that huge cavity reductions occurred. Now, the National Research Council has been mentioned a lot, that 2006 committee. That is a totally different subject than water fluoridation. That is naturally occurring fluoride in water at 2 to 4 parts per million and above. Completely different conversation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm almost done here. I think it seems like the Calgary Edmonton studies seem to be a real big one, and I don't know if there's any other ones around the world that we can look at, but it seems like that for some reason that one seems to really stand out. And
1.3 million people. It makes a huge impact when you've got people being put in the hospital to be put under general anesthesia because of the fluoridation having been stopped. There's also Juneau, Alaska, also had a cessation study that was out recently, as well as Windsor, Ontario, Canada, had a similar situation. And Windsor, Ontario, started refluoridation once we discussed it with them. And so has their cities that are on their water. Calgary is halfway to looking to restart as well. The science, nobody has ever stopped over the science. It has never been stopped in any community over the science of fluoridation. That is crystal clear, and it continues to be studied. The overwhelming body of literature is what we base our information on, not one or two new studies. They add to the body of literature, and those are good researchers that did these. But they did not measure what happened between birth and 3 years old. There was no measurements of what those kids had in their diets, whether they had arsenic, whether they had anything else that could have affected their IQ. There's holes in these studies, and we want to know what the bottom lines are as well. But we can't place our hat on one or two studies that haven't been repeated and done differently or to be replicated.
If there's information to that effect that you can share with the council, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely, yes.
So, and I was going to ask Mr. Connett if I could.
Yep, I'm
Mr.
ready.
Connett, did you want to reply to that? I mean, you've been kind of leaning forward. I just wanted to hear what your comments were on that question I asked.
Alder Steuer, I'm sorry.
I can't do that.
I just want to make you aware that there are 3 other people who have yet to speak.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mr. Connett, you can hold. Well, can I just ask him? I just need maybe 20 seconds.
Yes, 20 seconds. Chris Neurath was on earlier. He testified. Chris wrote a paper which was published in the same journal, which ripped apart this so-called Calgary study. I urge you to read Chris Neurath's critique of the Calgary study.
Okay. Thank you. All right, go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead, Celestine.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.
And the next person is Dunk RD. Dunk RD, please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee.
Hi, my name is Dr. Russ Dunkel, and I'm actually the Chief Dental Officer and State Dental Director for the state of Wisconsin. And I'm here to speak on behalf of keeping fluoride in the water. My address would be 1 West Wilson, Madison, Wisconsin, in the Department of Health Services building. And I'd like to thank the committee for staying on so long with this with this lengthy agenda and still staying awake.
Yeah, thank you.
You're more than welcome. One of the things my colleague, Dr. Johnson, had mentioned was the Windsor-Essex study that occurred in Ontario, Canada. And just to give a little more information on that, in 2013, the city council there voted 8-3 to remove fluoride from the water, but to do a 5-year study. So over the course of time, then in 2018, they voted the same level, 8-3, to put fluoride back into the water system. And the reason being for that is because of the severe complications that they noticed as a result of having removed fluoride from the water system. One example was that they estimated the average total cost for emergency dental visits within the hospital system was over $500,000 per year because of the advanced dental infections that occurred because of the lack of fluoride in the water system. Another study that's been talked about is the Green study and the Lampo study that was done in Canada based on the IQs. Some things that haven't been pointed out is that the average IQ change that they were talking about in young males was from 108.07 versus 108.21. That was the different change in the IQ status that they had. What they also didn't mention or bring out in the study was that what happened is it was not gender specific. For example, women or the girls had an IQ that was actually higher in the fluoridated group versus the non-fluoridated group. Other people that have looked at the study have also said that, it was done on a spot urine analysis. Well, if you're going to study any kind of substance that has a very short half-life, you have to do the study as a 24-hour sample, not a spot urine sample, to be accurate. So as Dr. Johnson pointed out, there was a lot of flaws in these studies, or a lot of holes that couldn't be justified or couldn't be confirmed. And that's what we need to look at when we're looking at these studies, is look at them closely and look at the true science. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Next we have, and I haven't forgotten you, Mr. Hager. Next we have Robin from, I don't see your last name. If you could please state your name and address for the committee.
Sure. My name is Robin Kuster, 1 West Wilson, Madison, Wisconsin. I am a registered dental hygienist and the fluoridation program coordinator with the Wisconsin Department of Health Services Division of Public Health. I work collaboratively on this issue with the Department of Health Services staff, including the state dental director, who just spoke, epidemiologists and toxicologists on community water fluoridation, and appreciate the opportunity to provide your committee with a statement on this important topic. The mission of the Wisconsin Department of Health Services is to protect and promote the health and safety of the people of Wisconsin. Community water fluoridation is a key component in our effort to reduce the burden of oral disease. Studies confirm that those living in a community with fluoridated drinking water have about a 25% reduction in cavities over those living in non-fluoridated communities. Water fluoridation is one of the most equitable ways to improve the health of children and adults, regardless of income, insurance status, race or ethnicity, or ability level. In Wisconsin, over 3.5 million people, or almost 90% of the population living on public water supplies, have fluoridated water. And in Brown County, with only 3 public water systems not adjusted for fluoride, 96.3% of the population on a public water supply has access to fluoridated water. As a state fluoridation program coordinator, I manage the fluoridation data in the water fluoridation reporting system for the CDC. A review of, I should say, for the data that feeds into the CDC. A review of the fluoridation data for Green Bay clearly demonstrates that this community consistently receives the recommended level of fluoride for optimal oral health. The quality of the operations within Green Bay Water Utility should be commended and recognized. The beauty of science is that we are always learning. Fluoridation is an area of active research for federal programs. They have panels of experts with knowledge, formal training in various health and scientific disciplines, and the capacity to review, interpret, and analyze hundreds of research papers. After 75 years of research and practical experience, the preponderance of scientific evidence indicates that fluoridation of community water supplies is a safe, effective, and well-tested public health program. The level of fluoride used in drinking water, 0.07 milligrams per liter, in other words, a very tiny amount, does not pose appreciable risks of harm to human health. Everyone in Green Bay benefits from fluoride in the drinking water, including children, adults, those living with developmental disabilities, nursing home residents, as well as those that have private dental insurance, Medicaid, or are uninsured. Available data does indicate that cavities remain a public health problem affecting many people. Fluoride has been proven to protect teeth from decay by helping to rebuild and strengthen tooth enamel. Thus, the health benefits of fluoride include having fewer cavities, less severe cavities, a less need for fillings and removing teeth, and less
Robin,
pain.
thank you so much. Your time has expired.
So, thank you, Robin. Actually, I have a quick question, Robin, for you. Thank you for your testimony. Do you, as far as the state of Wisconsin goes, what percentage of communities have fluoridated water? Which ones don't? I mean, can you give us a number as far as, you know, who fluoridates and who doesn't in the state of Wisconsin?
Probably the best number that I can give you is of the entire population in the state that's served by a public water supply, 90% of that population has access to fluoridated water. The exact number of communities that fluoridate versus the number of public water systems that don't, I don't have that off the top of my head. Certainly most of the bigger communities are adding fluoride. It's economically.
I read some things about Fond du Lac. You know, they had the issues of whether they wanted to keep fluoride or not. What is the status of Fond du Lac as far as fluoridation?
So Fond du Lac has some complex infrastructure that we're dealing with there. They have a lot of wells, 20 some wells, 26, I want to say. I'm not even sure the exact number, but it's a lot of wells. And they all have different levels of natural fluoride. Some of them have natural fluoride above the amount that above the 0.7 parts per million. And some are lower than that. So it's a Fond du Lac's complex.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's good for me. Anybody else? Otherwise, Celestine, go ahead.
Can I ask a question, Chris?
Sure, go ahead, Alder.
Yeah. Has your group done any studies on the effects of this fluoride on the developing fetus or the children, the babies that are being bottle fed? Because I do know that children are affected by chemicals a lot more than adults. There is a big, I know there's studies done that the body weight and development of a child differs from an adult. Have you done any studies on that?
So I can tell you that the Department of Health Services looks to protect all of the citizens in the state. We do not conduct research. We really rely on our federal partners for doing that. And I think, like I said in my testimony, they're the ones that really have to do that. They have the expertise, the panel of evidence, or the panel of experts that can really look at that. So we really rely on our federal partners to guide us in that way and to look at the science and help us make public health policies that promote the health and protect all Wisconsin residents. They certainly look at that research and take into consideration the most vulnerable populations, including babies and infants. That population is considered when that research is done, when that research is reviewed and analyzed.
So you have seen the NIH's last two studies?
I have seen them, and I can certainly tell you that the federal organizations that are looking at seen them as well and are well aware of them and have not changed any policies or any recommendations on what we should be doing with water fluoridation. And research would come out. We welcome that research. And if any new research would come out to suggest or to support that there may be populations that would be impacted by something such as the fluoride in the drinking water, we would certainly look at that and consider our policies as well.
Okay, is that good, Kath? Okay. Yep. All right, go ahead, Celestine.
Yes, thank you, Alder. And now, Mr. Hager, if you would unmute yourself, Dean Hager. Maybe it's Hoger, but if you would unmute yourself and please state your name and address for the committee.
My name is Dean Hoger. I live at 3731 Big Rock Place in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. I'm the Executive Director of Clean Water Action Council of Northeast Wisconsin. where we have about 200 members who live in the Green Bay area. In 2012, the Clean Water Action Council passed a resolution opposing the fluoridation of water, of municipal water. We looked at the issue, and prior to looking at it from a number of different points of view, my dentist had brought the issue up with me, and when she did, I said, well, I have a well, so it's not really something I should be concerned about. And then she went on to explain that the many different products that contain liquid most likely have fluoridated water in, whether it be soda, concentrated beverages, or beverages made from concentrate, any of those kinds of things, soups and so forth that are processed come from areas where there's typically fluoridated water. So the board looked at this issue, and when they saw that the CDC was saying that the fluoride was most effective when after teeth erupted, and that it was effective topically, not systemically, the board pretty much felt like that was enough information to realize that the city of Green Bay was using it as a drug to treat cavities, to try to reduce cavities. And after looking at this and realizing and explaining or having what my dentist explained to me, that there are lots of different ways that you get this fluoridated water, the dosage would then be uncontrolled, and different people would be getting different amounts of fluoridated water, especially people who might not be able to afford higher cost products. They might not be able to buy natural juices. They might have to buy juices and sodas and so forth that had more fluoridated water. So it also became a social justice issue, where people who couldn't afford to purchase unfluoridated water and use those in their homes for things like infant formula, they were subject to no choice. They basically had to add fluoride systemically to their diet, and yet the effects apparently were more, if there was a positive effect, it was tough. So when my wife comes back home, who's a oncology nurse, and talks about all the young people now that she sees in her oncology clinic with different kinds of cancers, it's a concern to me that we need to eliminate just this extra chemical that we're exposing the citizenry to. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Okay, and next we have David D. David D., can you please unmute yourself and give your name and address to the committee?
Yes, it's David Deschamps, 21 Shoulder Street, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54302. I kind of just wanted to chime in. Great conversation on both sides, and it's a very good learning situation. And I get kind of, just as a citizen, really want to chime in a thought process of mine as hearing all this, and really hearing on one side that this is the recommended amount that should be in the water to provide perfect oral health treatment. And that's just kind of really interesting, because anytime you do go to the dentist, they are still offering this fluoride as a purchase product to put on topical. And if you really are getting the perfect amount, as they say, or why are they still offering additional fluoride at that time? So it's just kind of another thought process of, why do they keep pushing a product or something that's ready, supposedly being offered at the perfect level, what is determined to be safe. So that's all I have to add. And just thank you, everybody, for their insight in this topic.
Thank you, David. David, I just have one question. As a citizen of Green Bay, would you entertain the thought of a referendum at all, or not?
Yeah, yes, I definitely think that's a very valuable thing. I do think that would be a good route to go, in my personal opinion, as long as there was a lot of open discussions or forums where people could become knowledgeable about the subject.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Thanks for staying up.
Okay. And next we have, well, Paul Connett has already, or Connett has already spoken. There's, so I'm going to take him last. There's Kim S. who's next. Kim S. as in Sam. Can you please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee?
Yeah, so my name is Kimberly Smith, and I live at 775 Edenberry Lane here in Oregon, Wisconsin. And I just want to talk about something that nobody else has, well, I guess Dean Hager kind of spoke on this, the civil justice issue. In a memorandum back in 1962, it was said, Dr. Russell told me today that Negroes in Grand Rapids had twice as much fluoride as others. So this community has known that the Black community is affected by fluoride at double, twice the rate as whites. So, you know, they're asking, should we change the optimum fluoride levels? You know, does this indicate more studies? Were there more studies done? Because I've never seen them. So I just want to kind of leave you with a quote from Dr. Alveda King, who is a niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. She wrote, "The Fluoride Gate scandal continues to unravel. All water fluoridation legislation should be repealed in all states that enacted fluoridation. Generally, people with built-in biases in support of fluoridation have been controlling the discussion about harm from fluorides. The Centers for Disease Control has clearly been trying to preserve fluoridation at all costs, but the facts about fluorides harm are coming out anyway. This is a civil rights issue. No one should be subjected to drinking fluoride in the water, especially sensitive groups like kidney patients, diabetics, babies in their milk formula, or poor families that cannot afford to purchase unfluoridated water. Black and Latino families are being disproportionately harmed." And I would like to expound on that. I was a single mother in Madison for quite a few years, and I wanted fluoride out of my water. I knew the dangers, and it was expensive to remove. So, you know, fluoride works, but at what cost? How can we get the same results without damaging the rest of our body? And I haven't heard anybody ask that. I think it's a cheap way to, you know, fluoridate everyone versus pinpointing those that need it. It's the cheapest way out. And I think that really needs to be addressed. So I would like the public health hygienists and dentists to stop speaking for people of color. Oftentimes we don't want that in our water. So thank you very much. It's getting really, really late. I need to head to bed. So, all right, take care.
Thank you, Kim. Kim, I was going to ask you a quick question. If you have any information that you have that you could share with our alders, if you could send it to our Green Bay City Council.
I did send you guys a PowerPoint, just a brief.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I did, yeah. If you would like any more, let me know.
All right, that may suffice, but you know, just if you feel that there's more that we can look at, please send it.
I will. Like I said, there weren't any studies to observe the, you know, twice as much fluorosis in the Black community. To my knowledge, I mean, I'm sure that there are other people who might know that better than myself. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Celestine.
Okay. Now we have Dean Murphy. Dean Murphy, can you please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the committee?
My name is Dean Murphy. My address is 2835 McFarland Road, Rockford, Illinois. I just wanted to give you kind of my take on where I was coming from. I wrote the book, The Devil's Poison, that the alderman had already mentioned. And it was just kind of the journey that I had gone through. And I wanted to just just try and briefly comment on that in 2 minutes that I have. But I'm a practicing orthodontist. I've been one for 33 years now. And why I wrote the book was I saw these marks on kids' teeth. That's what I do for a living. I dry teeth off, and I put braces on them. But most of the time they're dehydrated or dried. And I can look at the enamel, and I was looking at the enamel, and I couldn't figure out what all these marks were. And it's much worse than you see when the teeth are wet. How much damage there actually is on these teeth. So I was giving out fluoridated prescriptions to a lot of my patients for bad brushing. And that's what I was taught in dental school. And I was challenged one day by a mother, and it so affected me that I started doing my own research. And I kind of, I knew what I was taught the last, 6 years of my education, and I had to do my own research myself. And that's where I got back. Ended up doing research for about 15 years on the subject. And I finally compiled it all, put it in a book, and I wanted to teach the dentists, dentists that I know in my area, dentists that I, had gone to school with. And that's a lot of my time talking is with groups of dentists now. But in a nutshell, the little white spots, all the dentists, pro-fluoridation and anti-fluoridation, would all say that it's hypocalcification, and it is. But they never get any deeper than that. And the reason that those spots are there is because the substructure is faulty. The collagen that was laid down first by the ameloblasts was faulty. They were poisoned. Fluoride is a metabolic inhibitor. It blocks cellular respiration, and that's why those cells and that collagen becomes distorted. And then when the mineral goes to attach to the collagen, it ends up being defective. Not only, when you drink fluoride, does it just go to teeth? There's no magic bullet. And it goes to the brain, it goes to the bones, it goes to all the different systems in the body. And that's the real problem with fluoride, is that it's a general poison. It's not a specific one. And it's so small, hydrogen radius similar to it, it ends up crossing the blood-brain barrier and the placenta. So that's what I wanted to bring up. It's all the time I have, but it is a poison. Look into it and you'll discover it yourself. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. I did go to your website and take a look at a few things. And I guess one of the questions I had, I have a few dentists that, gave me information via phone, et cetera, that were afraid to speak, here, and you're not. So I guess the question I had is, I think is there a fear of retribution by some dentists maybe to speak on this because of the stance that groups have?
My first talk to my local dental society, they wanted to stop me at the last minute. The group of dentists got up in front and wanted me to they just told the president they want to stop me from even bringing up this topic. And it was a group of close to 100 and some dentists. And the president knew me, and she knew my integrity, she knew my intelligence, and she said, no, I'm going to let him talk. And I did. And I kind of floored them all because of the information that I had in there. And they started realizing that they really don't know the truth behind it. And they really don't know. We get so much information across our desks from public health, from the ADA, and it is what it is. It's a lot of it is propaganda. There's a deeper part to this monetarily. And if you start digging, you'll find it. And that's what I keep telling these people. It's one thing to be told it, it's another thing to start digging it on your own and looking for it, and you'll find it. And then it starts to make sense. And
how long did this take? How long did this take, all the research for the book?
15 years before I wrote it. I wrote it in 2008. And at the time, I had told I'm one of the first dentists or first authors to say that this is a neurotoxic agent. And at the time that I wrote it, there was 5 studies. They're all in China at the time, that it was neurotoxic. And the reason it's neurotoxic is because teeth are derived embryologically from neuroectoderm. So there's a strong connection between teeth, which are nothing more than calcified neurons, and the brain itself. and the nervous system itself. And by the time, now today, there's at least 65 studies out saying that it's neurotoxic. So I put my reputation, I put my thoughts and intelligence on the line back in 2008, and it's true. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book and got it in print was to say, look, these are facts. You can't deny it that way.
Well, thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Okay, Alder, Chair, we have no one else who's raised their hand.
Come on. Rick North? Rick North is raising his hand. You want to?
Unless I am not seeing him.
There's a Rick North. He's a good-looking guy, blue shirt.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
Nice library.
Just give me a second. Mr. North, please state your name and address for the committee.
Yes, my name is Rick North. I live at 17070 Southwest Rivendell, Durham, Oregon, right outside of Portland.
Go ahead.
I'd like to start by just introducing who I am. I'm the chair of the advisory committee for the Fluoride Action Network, the largest organization in the world opposing fluoridation. And I've been a volunteer on this issue for 10 years. Okay. My background, I worked for the American Cancer Society for 21 years in management, the last 5 as the director of the Oregon division. And before I retired, I worked 7 years for the Physicians for Social Responsibility, heading up a nationwide safe food program. So I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I just worked with them my entire life, just about. I always favored fluoridation until a friend called me about 10 years ago and said, would you actually just look at the science on this? I said, okay, I will. And when I did, I was just amazed at how many serious health risks there were. And the evidence was so strong that I just changed my mind. And the main scientist, this has been mentioned before, but here I'm going to a little show and tell. This is the National Research Council's study, 2006 fluoride in drinking water. It is true they didn't take a position on fluoridation one way or the other. But what they also did was look at the toxicity of fluoride. And of course, if you put it in the water, there's no way to control it. So just a couple of quotes. By the way, can you see the the paper clip? Those are all red flags that I saw in this. Just a couple of quotes. The unequivocal nature of these. Fluoride interferes with the functions of the brain and body, is an endocrine disruptor, decreases thyroid function, increases the severity of some diabetes. There was no doubt about this back in 2006. And still fluoridation has continued. So I just wanted to bring that to light. And just a couple other things, because the narrative you keep hearing is that this stuff has been proven safe for everybody. Well, no, it hasn't. I'm just going to address some of the points that have been brought up. The Calgary-Edmonton study, that's been, what you've heard is the rate went up after stop fluoridation. It did. What you didn't hear is it had been going up just as much before they stopped fluoridation. Be happy to send you that. These scientists that have been quoted, and I think misrepresented, I will give you the quotes of these scientists themselves that have taken part in these studies and let you hear from them themselves. This 1 or 2 studies, that's all they've got. The original petition to the EPA against allowing fluoridation, 57 out of 61 studies. Higher the fluoride, the lower the IQs. So
thank you very much. Your time has expired.
Thank you, Rick. If you care to send that to our council, I'd appreciate it, what information you have.
I will be happy to send that. And you had talked about the attacks on the dentists, the threats. I've actually prepared 3 pages of evidence, short quotes on how many scientists and dentists have been attacked for their stances against fluoridation. And this has been taking their jobs away, their
Alder, Mr.
Okay.
North's time has expired.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Just send the information.
I will send that to you. Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Celestine?
I do not see anyone else who is, let me just take a look here. Unmuted. Oh, I do see one person, Keith Decker, whose hand is raised. Mr. Decker, can you please unmute yourself? I think you already are, and share your name and address for the committee.
Okay, Keith Decker, Bristol Mountain Trail. Thank you for, you can hear me?
Bristol Mountain Trail in
Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54313.
Go right ahead.
All right, well, thank you for dealing with this important issue. Please give it your thorough consideration and care, and please go to greenbaywater.org to hear what I have to say about it beyond this time limit. I'd ask that you please speak further with the internationally renowned experts that have joined in today. Paul and Michael Conant in particular, they know this issue inside and out, including the details of the science and the law. There's a lot of different angles you can approach the topic with and a lot of details to dive into. But as I see it, the bottom line is that public water fluoridation is unethical, unsafe, and unnecessary because, number one, that it is intentionally, as in the whole purpose of it is to be a forced mass medication, violating an individual's right to consent and disregarding individual appropriate dosage. That sentence alone is reason enough to stand in opposition to fluoridation. It should not be the role of government to force innocent people to ingest the medication against their will. No one should do that. Fluoride is not a benign substance. It's not a nutrient. It's not used to treat the water quality. It's a prophylactic drug intended to medicate children, indiscriminately applied to everyone in the community. If a citizen forced a politician to take a drug against their will, they'd be in jail because it is inherently a violation of a person's body. And it is obviously wrong to act as if one owns the body of another person, much less the entire population. If there's anything a person can rightly own, it's themselves. And the sanctity of one's own body is why rape is wrong. Self-ownership and free will are something sacred. And that's why fluoridation contravenes multiple major codes of ethics and law. The very first sentence in the Nuremberg Code is the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. In UNESCO's Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights, it explicitly states, in no case should a collective community agreement or the consent of a community leader or other authority substitute for an individual's informed consent. To circumvent that is a moral crime. Fluoride added to the public water cannot be avoided, as it cannot feasibly be filtered out, and it goes anywhere the water flows. If there is anything a person is entitled to, it's elemental sustenance. Water is a vital necessity of life, and it needs to be available free from drugs. It's not an appropriate way to treat a disease, and you cannot control the situation. So please stop it. If it's morally wrong, don't do it. So I have more to say, but greenbaywater.org.
Thank you, Keith. We'll look at that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Celestine. Celestine, you there? Hello.
Oops, unmuted. It is rather late.
Don't leave us. Yeah, I know.
I know that you wanted to, a couple things. So I know Attorney Bungert wanted to address the hour and open meetings laws. And so I'm going to give Attorney Bungert the opportunity to do that.
Yes, so we have hit 11 p.m. and it appears our discussion or at least the public portion is completed on the fluoridation issue. However, we still do have 3 ordinances remaining on the agenda along with 2 informational reports. So I'm not sure what the committee's issues are at this point, whether we'd like to recess or
Alder
Finish
Stevens.
up the agenda.
I wanted to say one thing quickly. I know Alder Dorf, you've been hanging on for quite a while for your item. Are you okay with if we went to Thursday with that?
I think that would be an excellent idea. I have quite a bit of information, and it would take a long time.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to check. So Alder Stevens, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, we need to make a motion to close the floor.
Okay. Why don't you do that?
I'll second it.
Okay, Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder LaFave. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So because of the 11 o'clock hour, I suggest that we convene until Thursday.
I would like to make a one statement, Mark, before we close.
Yeah, go ahead.
We should vote on the fluoridation tonight after all this discussion. I oppose the fluoridation in the water. I make that motion. I oppose it.
Well, I was thinking about Alder, I was thinking about this. I mean, we're all real tired. I think it would be nice to have some finalization tonight, but we are holding off on 3 other items.
But I'm talking about, we talked on this item, Mark, for a long time. I think we should make a lot of things will be missed. I heard the discussions tonight. I feel that we should vote on this right tonight. We don't have to skip around.
Hold on a second. Okay, just calm down a little bit.
Can I ask a question? Alder Vanderleest, would Thursday be okay? Because we're going to get all this information that these people are going to be sending us.
No, I want to vote tonight on this item. This item was drawn out for a long session, and I want to vote on it tonight. That's only fair.
I do follow your reasoning on that. I'm still awake. I don't. Alder Dorf, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like a full and rich discussion from the alders on the committee then. It just shouldn't go right to a vote. You guys should have time to discuss this and to think about it and to talk about it. So if you want to stay, on and do that, that's fine.
Let's stay on and talk about this right now.
I think it's not a good idea to do that. I don't think you should be jumping to a vote. And I think you have learned so much information that to process it until Thursday might be a really good idea. Thanks.
I concur.
Mark, I'd just like to make a comment quick.
Go ahead.
I've listened to all the arguments on both sides. I don't have to wait till Thursday to make a decision. My mind is, I'm tuned in on what's going on and what's been presented. I want to vote on this tonight, and I oppose the fluoridation in the water. And we'll be taking it up at council anyway. But I oppose it, and I'd like to vote on it tonight. I make that motion.
Well, let me ask Alder Stevens and Alder LaFave. Are you up for this tonight? Yes or no?
I'm not. No.
Alder Stevens?
I pretty much know. I kind of know, but I'd like to get some of this information and go through it yet. And I'm sorry, it is really late for me, and I have to get up early tomorrow. I have to go to Sturgeon Bay, and I want to be awake.
Alder Vanderleest, I appreciate your intensity on this, but Alder Dorf brings up a good point that we're going to be discussing this for probably at least a half hour. I mean, if we're going to do it right, if we're going to do it justice. I know you have your mind made up, but I've done a lot of research on this as well. I've got pages.
I've done some as well, Mark.
Right, I understand. I'm not diminishing that by any means, but I think it's important that we have a clear head when we decide on this. Okay. So I'm
fine then. That's how
I'm willing to go. I'm willing to go to Thursday. I'm sorry if that disappoints you, but I'm willing to go to Thursday. So Alder Stevens, did you want to go ahead?
I would like to thank you, everybody, for speaking tonight. It was greatly appreciated. Yes,
very much
I would definitely like to wait until Thursday.
Okay, make that motion.
So what time on Thursday?
Alders, we do need to set the specific date and time. My proposition would be 2 p.m. Because staff does need time to go through the minutes. This is a very, very lengthy meeting to prepare the minutes and the report in order for it to be ready in time for council report on Tuesday. It's still going to be a bit of a race because we do not have any committee meetings on Thursday for that reason. However, that's the only time that we would be able to do because of the other standing committees that are set for tomorrow and Wednesday. my suggestion would be the latest 2 p.m. On
That's okay with
the
me.
date is the 13th, 14th, the 16th of July.
16th. Yeah.
And it will be a Zoom format such as this.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Alder Stevens, is that your motion?
2 o'clock on Thursday?
Yes.
Recess to 2 p.m. on Thursday, July
16th.
Yes.
Okay,
Do we have a
And I'll
second?
second that. I'll second
Seconded by
that.
LaFave.
Sawyer, if I could comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Your committee, obviously, you can take whatever vote you want, but just remind the committee that you're here for the public. Now, this is a public meeting. Many city council meetings have gone until morning hours, 2 in the morning. So again, your committee, but you have a lot of people on this call right now from all across the country with a lot of different perspectives and expertise. Just be mindful that, recessing to a later time, I don't think is appropriate, considering the fact that you could settle this issue now, having just heard a couple hours of public testimony. I just think delaying it and pushing, again, not criticizing you all personally, but we answer to the public. The public just provided comments for several hours. I think you owe it to them to settle this issue out and move forward.
Well, Alder Burnett, if that's the case, then I would, there were a couple of citizens that talked about a referendum. I would opt for something like that. That was something I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to air that out with a number of the alders.
You have a motion on the floor to recess. I'm not trying to hijack your meeting.
No, but I'm
that
just saying.
I would prefer you all deal with
Alder Steuer, is that
Yes,
your
go ahead.
recommendation?
Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
I would second that.
Okay, we'll put it to referendum. Anybody else?
It'd be a nay on a referendum. I think we should address the issue right now. A referendum we can do in the future. We can get that done in the future, but I think we should deal with this situation right now. City council should speak up and say what they want.
Wow. Okay.
I'm sorry. Then I'm sorry. If the council then says, yeah, let's take fluoride out, then there's no reason to have it. Sorry, I'm so tired.
I think fluoride is a big issue, and I think the city council should weigh in on it. Period.
Well, they will.
Well, fluoride is a big issue.
I say we should vote on this right now tonight. With all the people that chimed in on the public, I think we should vote on it right tonight.
Why?
And get the votes out right now.
Well, Alder Vanderleest,
Alders,
like they
we do
said.
have a motion. Alders, we do have a motion on the floor.
Yes.
Which was to recess until Thursday at
Yes, let's just take a vote on that. Alder Vanderleest.
I'm a nay.
The vote will have, hold on a second. The vote will be for Thursday to get this information out. I know the people, a lot of folks are here. They really want to hear what we feel tonight. I want to make sure that we're of sharp mind and do it at that time.
My thoughts are my mind is sharp right now, and I can vote on wait till Thursday.
Yes, we know.
I don't know what you had for dinner, but I could use some of it.
Yeah.
So like I said, no matter which way we go on this, someone's not going to be happy. I know.
Alders, would we like to do a voice vote on the motion
Yes.
on the floor? Okay.
Yes.
Alder Stevens.
Yes.
Alder Vanderleest.
Nay.
Alder Steuer.
Yes.
Alder LaFave.
Yes.
All right. The motion to recess to 2 p.m. on Thursday, July 16th passes 3-1 with Alder Vanderleest voting no.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, we will pick up the remainder of the agenda on Thursday, and that meeting will be noticed and agendas posted.
Thank you all for all your testimony and time, and everybody get a cookie and some milk or something, because I'm going to.
All right. Good night, all. Thank you.
Not a cookie. Not a cookie.
Yeah, you're right.
Health.
Oh, brother.
We don't want the sugar.
Is this meeting adjourned?
Yeah. Well, it's how can we? How do we call it? How do we call it, Attorney Bunger? Just recess.
I believe because we are recessed, it's essentially a pause, and then we would resume the meeting.
Okay, so this meeting is officially recessed. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yes, it's been recessed. Correct.
Thank you.